Hey folks, welcome back to Man Cave, the Empire of Dirt and Stuff. Today I want to go over some really basic knots that you could find useful for just about anything, whether it's lashing gear or if you're into climbing or you want to get into climbing or rappelling or whatever, caving. Um, you know, these are just, camping. These are good knots if you need to know if you want to go camping or hiking, you're going to be in the outdoors. Or even around the house. You got to put up the little lady wants you to put up a clothesline or something. You need to tie a knot, loop, something like that. So handy stuff. Okay, so the first knot we're going to go over is going to be there we go. This is going to be the fisherman's knot, and it's used to form a loop in a piece of line, usually a piece of thinner utility line like 7 or 8 millimeter line or even paracord. And with that you can make a loop and then tie the second knot on the list, which is the prusik. And that's where you take the loop and you basically wrap it around into what's called a girth hitch several times. And it's a really interesting knot because it's a binding knot so that if you attach it to a line, a thicker line, it won't give if you tug on it, right, in either direction. But if you do what's called minding the prusik, which is to just sort of gently grab the entire knot, all the wraps in your hand, so that they can't shift direction, so that they stay basically vertical or perpendicular to the direction that the line's going, you can slide that line right through without a problem, right? Without a hitch, so to speak. Sorry for the pun. But then, if you need to bite that line, there you go. Okay, there's that. Then there's a couple variations on the figure 8 knot I was going to go over. Again, it's a very useful knot, and some people know it in the simpler form as kind of just a stopper knot at the end of a line, which is handy. It's also really good and quick for putting a loop in a knot in the end or in the middle of a knot. The middle version of this takes a little more finagling. I'm not going to get into it because it's really hard to show on camera, but the midline knot version of this actually is directional. You can make it directional, and that's probably the best one to use in the middle of a line. And then the last knot is called the Alpine Butterfly loop, and it's also a midline knot. It's kind of weird to tie. You need like 4 hands and your teeth, and like the force. If you could manipulate things through the force, this would be really easy to tie. And I'm sure for folks that tie them all the time it is, but I don't use this knot all the time. But this is handy if you just got a line strung up like in camp or something, and you decide you need to put a loop in it to hang gear, or I don't know. The use would become apparent as soon as you needed the use. It's kind of one of those things, but very handy knot to know. So, what should we start? Let's start with the figure 8. That's the easiest one. So the figure 8 is basically an overhand knot with an extra half hitch around the standing line. Generally in nomenclature of ropes, and there's a couple different ways to talk about it, but this is the tag end, and this is usually your standing line or your standing end. I think there's other terminology too, I don't remember, but that's not as important. So first, the blocker figure 8. Your tag end, you come under your standing line, you come over your standing line, come back around towards the bottom of your standing line, and then through the loop that you've made at the end right here, like so. And as is painfully clear right there, it looks like a figure of 8, and you just cinch her up, and that's it. And this is good if you've got, say, a pulley or something, or a sheave, and you don't want the end of the line to slip through. It will help. It's not a guarantee. This knot can come undone. This knot can get pulled through if there's enough force on the line, but it's handy. And then if you want to make a loop out of this, it's basically the same idea. You take the end of your line, double it back over, like so, and you're going to tie the exact same knot, only with the loop leading the way. So you come under like you're going to tie just a regular old overhand knot, come back around, and make this a little bit longer. Come under, around like you're going to tie that knot, which is this, not what you want. Come back around underneath one last time, one half turn if you will, under the standing line, like so, and then back through the loop at the end that you've made. And again, you can see that distinct figure 8 pattern, and maybe not as distinct on the back side. Well, yeah, it is. And then you just cinch it up, fair the knot, and you're good to go. And now you've got a really quick and dirty loop in the end of your line. And this is actually a really popular knot to use for anchoring in climbing. And it's good for a zillion things if you're going to go magnet fishing or something. A word of caution: this knot will start to loosen a little bit under cyclical loading and unloading. Not as badly as a bowline will. A bowline will untie itself if it's cyclically loaded and unloaded, especially in synthetic line. So what you should do is you should leave enough tag end here to tie in a stopper knot of some sort, like another figure 8, and or tie it off in the process to your standing line. And I just got a really short chunk of line here, so I don't have enough to really do that and make it look all pretty and everything. But again, very useful. That's the figure 8. The fisherman's knot. This is what it looks like, and I probably should have untied this first to make the demonstration more worthwhile. So let me untie this and be right back. Okay, so you've got just the length of line. This is about 3 feet of paracord here, and this would be too long for making a proper prusik loop, but it's just easier for me to demonstrate the knot here. So what you do is you take the ends of your line and you just lay them across each other like this. Nothing too fancy like that. It just becomes overlapping. Pick either end that you want. I'll just start with the left because I'm left-handed. And you come around the opposite end like this. So this is one end, this is the other end, right? So this is your working end. We'll call this the opposite end. So you take your working end and you come over the opposite end once, one full turn, a little bit more there, one full turn, a second full turn, and at this point you can come back up 1/2 turn, like so, right? And you've kind of formed these nice coils here. Hopefully you can see. And you want to leave them open because now you're going to feed this line back through the coils. And it's a little tricky, but the more you do it, the easier it gets, right? And you take your tag end and your standing line and you just ferret it up gently. You don't want to go all the way hog wild on this yet. You want to leave it a little bit loose, so just like that, just so it looks nice and neat and it's going to hold its shape. And you repeat the process with the other end. So you come down around 1, around 2, another half, and then we'll get back through there, through the loops, what that we have just made. And being a lefty, this is backwards to me in my brain. I suppose I could have just flipped the line over and done it, but that's alright. And oh, you know what? I ran it through the wrong one. Hang on. You need to go through there. There we go. And then we'll just ferret up a little bit. Alright, so now you've got another couple of pretty coils, like so. And start to bring them together by pulling on the actual sides, if you will, of the loop. And as you do that, you can just ferret up and bring it together. And this, I did something a little bit different because it's going to make it a little easier for me to show you something. So you'll see that this knot here on the left looks like it has, yeah, let's get that in there. Looks like it's got 2 loops, right? This one's got 3. Fisherman's knot, right? Fisherman's knot and double fisherman's knot. You can use either for this. I prefer the double. The regular fisherman's knot is acceptable, at least in every book and guide, like the Lipke guide that I've read. I think it's a personal preference. You cinch it down, right, and then there you've got your completed knot. Looks nice and pretty and happy and everything like that. And then with this is something like that you would make a prusik. And then last but not least is my favorite and least favorite, and that's the Alpine Butterfly knot. It's also called a lineman's knot. I don't know the history of it from that aspect. Okay, so you start with the line. If you're using your left hand as your base, if you will, start with the line coming in from your right side. Okay, it's laid across about a 45 degree, like so. Take the line around the back of your hand, like so. Okay. Make a loop behind your fingers and come back across. Right. And you can see my crossing points right there. I'm going to shift that just back a little bit. It's going to make things make, I think, a little more sense and look a little cleaner. Okay, so you've got an upper loop, if you will, here on your fingers, and a lower loop down here on your hands, crossed over. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. It looks like a Chinese finger trap, and it's actually about to become one, but you'll see what happens next. So, take your top loop, all right, the smaller of the two, if you will, and you come over where the lines cross. Let's see if this. It never ends. Of course the battery's gonna die. I should have plugged this silly thing in. My fault. Alright, let me readjust here. Hello! Hello, America! Okay, so left hand is what I'm going to work with as my base. I'm going to bring the line in from the right. Left hand coming in from the right. Okay. Cross the palm of my hand and take it around behind my fingers, like so. Cross it over my fingers and behind. So now I've got a loop sitting up there on my fingers crossed on the back side. Okay? And the loose end is going to come back across my palm, just like so. So what I've done is I take this apart really quickly. You'll see I've just made 2 loops in an 8. Alright? And you can just, you know, line it, and go. But having your hand involved, that just sounds bad. Having your hand involved does help make it a little easier because it keeps the loops more organized. So let me show it this way. So you take your top loop, right? That's your smaller loop. Alright? You come over the cross lines right here in your palm. Okay? So that upper loop has come over. It's a little tricky to see, maybe a little easier to see that way. Okay? And then we're going to take the belly of the loop, the upper loop here, and we're going to run it under the lines, the cross, and then back through this center loop that we've just created. And I did not leave myself enough slack, but I can fake it. Or can I? I might have just rim-rocked myself here. Let's see. Yeah, that's going to be an awfully stutty Alpine Butterfly loop, but it gets the point across. Actually, no, it doesn't. It actually sucks really bad. Okay, let's redo it. What the hell? Okay, so from the left, back over, around. Oops. Left side, around, back, loop, there, back. Keep it there under control with my thumb. And you can just sort of take line from either end if you want to make that upper loop a little bit longer. It makes it easier to work with. Okay? Over the cross, under the cross, and through the solitary hole. As it starts to fair up, it looks like a mess right now, but it'll fair up nicely. Right. And this is where you need 3 hands, because you really want to fair up this knot with either end of the running line and the loop end. So this is where you would use your teeth, or you would say, hey you, yes you, come here, hold on to that, while I yank on the other 2 ends. Anyway, that's it. And you just fair it up. And what you've got is, you can see you've got what looks like 2 half hitches on either side. You've got lines crossed. More light. You've got lines crossed right there, and on the back side you've got lines parallel, and then you got the actual either side of the loop coming up through in between all that mess right there. So until next time, it's not my fault.